You know, there's a whole world out there that I think many of us in Australia really don't know much about. There's about 6.7 billion people in the world, divided into over 16,000 people groups. And of those people groups, over 6,000 are unreached people groups. They haven't heard the gospel. And nearly 1 billion people at the start of the 21st century entered that century without being able to read or write. We're told that in the year 2020, there are going to be 1 in 3 people who are living in poverty. It seems to me sometimes that we Australians kind of live very isolated from the rest of the world. We live in, I guess, a bubble. We're sheltered by distance, we're sheltered by the things around us in our own country, and we don't actually see the reality of the world. On average, Australians spend about 84.4 hours a week on media and leisure activities. And considering that we're only awake for about 112 hours a week, that's a pretty scary statistic. You know, Australians work longer hours than they did 30 years ago to buy bigger houses, to buy more toys, to buy more leisure, and we're caught up in a thing that many people have called affluenza. This is a real striving for our own fulfilment, for our own pleasure. Often we compare ourselves to each other in Australia, but if we have a roof over our head, if we have a car, we are in the top 3% of the world's richest people.
Coming back, I realised how spoiled we are here.
One of the first things that we noticed was how much we had in Australia. When you go overseas, you see how little people need to live.
But when I brought out a photo of my house, they were going, "Oh, resort, resort," and thought that I lived at a resort, and I'm trying to explain that this is like an Aboriginal house in Australia.
You see many people have a sense of wanting to belong to something so much bigger. I guess when people understand that we're part of God's plan and God's purpose and can fit into that plan and purpose, it's then when you actually see you have relevance and you see that you are part of something so much bigger. Then we find the fulfilment, the fullness of life that He promises for us.
I went there because I was going overseas on a big trip just to see the world, and I really wanted to do something that was a bit more just worthwhile, volunteer kind of basis, just to see even how the other half of the world lives compared to all the rich tourists who travel around the world. Yeah.
When we retired, we thought, well, what are we going to do? Are we going to just sit at home, or are we going to travel, or what we're going to do? And we thought that really we were not that old yet. We could enjoy ourselves and help somewhere. And so we looked into volunteering.
You know, Jesus calls us to be His hands and His feet, and that is a sense of action. He just gives us such an example. He touched the leper, he touched the eyes of the blind, and He sends us out. We're not stationary people, we're people who are sent out into a world to preach the word, heal the sick, cast out demons, feed the hungry, touch the lives of the blind and the lepers, and to bring His love to people in very real ways.
I think I learned that serving doesn't necessarily mean this big hands-on kind of I do this and look at how wonderful it is, but it's just me being there and wanting to live with people and know them and love them and just bit by bit build relationships and get through the struggles.
To be able to share your life with them and to share Jesus' love and accept that and experience, you know, friendship.
Yeah, I guess it's been also my experience and many others who have served in this way to understand that it's not that easy always. It's tough, and sometimes you really struggle. You want to run away, you want to hide, you want to cry, and yet it's in those things, those experiences that you grow most.
It's been a huge growing experience. I think that's probably been one of the most difficult things personally. God has pulled me apart and done some amazing stuff and made me grow up and learn about my weaknesses and my strengths. It's been amazing, but it's been really tough as well.
It was very humbling, not really knowing how to communicate and kind of feeling out of my depth and wanting to be there to serve people, but then feeling like I didn't have any of the skills needed to serve them because I was tired and I didn't really know how to speak.
I can only encourage people to say, look, have a go and allow God to shape you through these experiences.
God was faithful through all of that, and He didn't make it necessarily easy for me, but if He had made it easy then I wouldn't have grown.
I think I've grown and learnt so much since I've been here, and I think you'll find all volunteers also agree.
You know, I think it's really important that people don't just go thinking, I know it all right from the start, but the more you can prepare before you go, the more you can know about the culture, the more you can know about the language, the people, the expectations, the better you are prepared to learn, but also the more effective you're going to be in your service.
I think it is important to prepare for it. Partly it's mental preparation, or very much it is mental preparation. You have to get your head around the idea of that the way you do things, the lifestyle you have, is not the only way of doing things, and that other methods can be just as valid and just as enjoyable.
Come over expecting that things are going to be different, food and customs and people, language, everything is going to be different, and so be prepared to learn new things and try new things, because that's a big part of what the experience is about.
And it's being flexible, I think, is one of the most important parts of living in another culture.
I love the verse in Romans chapter 12 and written in the Message where it says, don't become so well adjusted to your culture that you fit in without even thinking, but let your life be transformed. And I think that the experience of that stepping outside and then returning gives you new eyes.
I think the biggest way that kind of changed me while I was there was just becoming a lot less materialistic, because as I said, the kids don't have anything, and when I got home I looked kind of at all the things I had and just thought, I don't need half this stuff.
And so on, you come back and you have cupboards and cupboards full of things.
Embarrassment, I think it was. I felt the first time was embarrassment.
And just little things like reevaluating what kind of job you have, and if you need a big car or a house, and all these things that are kind of like the stages of life. And I got back and thought, well, I'd be quite happy just to work for a while and then go back again and not build up all this stuff.
My prayer is for people who volunteer and people who serve overseas is that when they do return, they look at their own life, they look at their own culture through the eyes that Jesus has for our culture.
After a while back, you start thinking, how can I help someone? Not necessarily with money, but by giving some of my time or giving some of my talents, and so that becomes part of the effect of going on it. You become very much more aware of the international community and the needs of people.
Jesus' call hasn't changed. It's still very much the same today as it was 2,000 years ago. And it's to go, not to be still, but to go. And I think I love the promise that He's with us always to the very end of the age. It's not something we do by ourselves, it's His work, and we're joining Him in that.